Welcome to AstroChat with Anne Sundell, Kimberly Williams, and Monica Anna. We are three professional astrologers living in three separate countries, coming together every new and full moon to share our 3 points of view on astrology. Whether you enjoy deep dives into the current transits, or you are just beginning to learn about astrology for the first time, there is a place for you here. All that is required is an appreciation for astrology, along with a respect for the various traditions within it. So grab a mug of coffee, your favorite cup of tea, or any other beverage of your choice, and join us for a chat on the astrology of the next 2 weeks. Hi there, and welcome to our next AstroChat with Monica Anna, Anne Sundell, and myself, Kimberly Williams. We are 3 professional astrologers sharing our 3 points of view, and today we're going to be talking about the new moon on February 1st. I will try to put in the comments below, if you're watching us on YouTube, some timestamps so you can go to the favorite part of where you're wanting to hear. And if I'm good enough to figure out how to do that on BuzzFeed, then you'll have it on the audio. So some things we're going to be talking about today, not a complete list, but just an overview, if you will, is we're starting off with the new moon, which actually starts off our month. Our new moon, if you live in Texas, is going to be January 31st at 11:45 p.m. If you're living in the UK, it'll be on February 1st at 5:45 a.m. And for those living in Finland, it is going to be also on February 1st, but at 7:45 a.m. So take your pick, mark it on your calendar, and be ready to tune into some new moon energy. We're going to see throughout the month, we're talking here about what is happening from February 1st through February 15th, because on the 16th is our full moon, and that'll be the next AstroChat. So we're looking at the 2 weeks from new moon to full moon. We're going to notice that somewhere, depending on where you live, somewhere around February 2nd or 3rd, we will have that visible crescent. The first quarter will be happening on February 8th in the afternoon around 1:50 p.m. It's going to be at lovely middle degrees of Taurus. Our waxing gibbous will, of course, be those 3 or 4 days before our full moon. And the next full moon, if you want to make a note now, is going to be on February 16th, and that's going to be at 28 degrees of Leo. Some other things we're going to talk about today, in addition to what's happening with this new moon energy, is the fact that we have some planets stationing, such as Mercury and some of the outer planets. We have some asteroids making their ingress, like the asteroid Ceres going into Gemini on February 9th. And if you are interested and haven't already listened to our last podcast, we mentioned the lovely cycle of Venus, who did some exciting retrograde energy. She's now direct, but going back over those in her post-shadow, so you might want to listen to that episode and catch up on there. So those are just some of the things we're going to be jumping into, but let's start off with talking about our new moon. And the first thing to mention is it is a new moon, the phase of the moon. New moon energy is so significant, and I think never more than when it's like this one. It is on a day known to a lot of pagans as Imbolc. For those in the US, it's Groundhog Day. Those who follow Chinese astrology, it is the beginning of the Chinese New Year of the water tiger. So there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of, this is kind of a second new year in my mind, to me. And so it makes this new moon so powerful. In fact, in many cultures, this is the new moon, if they follow a lunar calendar, that begins the Lunar New Year. So I feel like there's this extra newness, and I do air quotes with that, around this new moon. New moon energy is about sinking. It's about sinking into our unconscious. It's about becoming one with our conscious and our unconscious are merging. It's about sinking into perhaps our body. It is about sinking into opening up and hearing what is calling us forward. So unlike the traditional January 1st, beginning of the new year, kind of solar energy, if you will, that says, let's set some goals and let's use our mind and let's get going and let's get productive. New moon energy is much more about opening up surrendering to that very unconscious, intuitive part of the self and hearing what's coming forward, what is calling us. It's sort of opening up to intention. And to tell us more about what we're going to do with this particular new moon, I'm going to pass the baton, if you will, over to Monica.
I love that introduction. I kind of agree. I'd like to unpack the new moon phase maybe a little bit more. Because if anyone actually works with a lunar calendar or works with the moon, this phase is a great phase to set intention, to, like you say, to go within and journal on what you're planning for the month. It's like a birthday of the month. It starts something new and something fresh. And actually, this is a perfect time as well to connect to the energy of the archetype of the zodiac that the new moon is in. It's the moment where you can start a new journey, start fresh. And I agree that the new moon in Aquarius, it always feels fresh for me. I was thinking about it actually this afternoon, that new moon in Aquarius for me, and especially around Imbolc, especially this time of the year, especially if you live in a northern hemisphere, in the countries that do have those 4 seasons, this is the moment when you can smell different type of the air. Like there is that spring, hope of the spring already in the air. If you live in a countries where there is, proper winter with the snow, the moment where snowdrops are coming out from underneath the snow, you know that the season will turn. Yes, it's still middle of winter. Yes, Aquarius is still fixed sign. It's that kind of core of the winter season. But the hope of something new, the hope of that kind of breaking through a frozen ground is there. And the freshness of the air. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but I actually went outside the other day and I could smell different air. You could tell that the winter is slightly moving here in UK, and we're approaching spring. And this is also for me very much the energy of Aquarius. So Aquarius is that freshness that comes after Capricorn. It's that fresh look at the Capricornian rules, at the Capricornian structure. We do see Aquarius as the rebel, as the eccentric. But I always go back to that traditional ruler. Both Aquarius and Capricorn are ruled by Saturn. So what is about them that is different, and what is about them that is similar, because they are ruled by the same Saturnian energy? And I do think that in Aquarius, the breaking of the rule is not just necessarily for the sake of breaking of the rules, but we're coming out from an archetype that matured, that achieved the authority, achieved that experience through following the rules. And now we are in a position of, I know which rules to break, because I know which rules do not work, which structures do not support me anymore, and what I need to do and change to bring freshness, to bring something new. Because rules are only, and structures are only so good if they're supporting our growth. The moment they don't, they become fossilized, whether it's a social construct, a cultural construct, a religious construct, anything that becomes fossilized to the point that we're following rules for the sake of following rules, it kills that life vibe energy. It kills that freshness. And that's what I think Aquarius brings. It brings that new look at what we have and how can we change that. It is that kind of humanitarian sign that, I'm trying to change things for the betterment of the humanity. There is that detachment. Aquarius is an air sign, so we live more in our heads. That idea of freshness is more in our heads. We think of new ideas. We think of the new future. We think of that new vision of the future. I don't remember, that's not my metaphor. I remember one of the astrologers that I was listening to some time ago described those waves of the Aquarian sign, the Aquarian glyph, those 2 waves that you might recognize as the brain waves or the radio waves. that kind of vibing with someone and being fresh and being all about data and having that tribe that vibes with you. When we say that I want to find the people that have the same vibe as me, this is Aquarian energy. And this is what I love about starting new year. For me, very much beginning of January with the Capricorn season, I'm all about the planning, all about the New Year's resolution and setting the goals and planning the map. But then when I come to Imbolc, it's about reviewing that plan and seeing if it's fresh and seeing if it will support that growth. And also understanding that for growth, you sometimes have to break through that snow, break through that frozen ground. It might not be easy. So yeah, I mean, I could talk about Aquarius all day long, given that I am Aquarian sun. But yes, I love this new moon. I am being biased, of course, but that freshness in the energy in the air with people, that hope that happens around this time, that we can see the days being actually longer. Again, intellectually, we know that from winter solstice, from December, the days are getting longer. Intellectually, we know that. But our bodies don't feel that until around end of January, beginning of February, when you notice that the days getting a little bit longer, that when you come back from work, you might have a tiny little bit more of light if you live in the northern hemisphere. So that is the energy. And given that it's a new moon, you can utilize that time. You can utilize that time on the 31st in US or the 1st in Europe, and set intentions for something new. Set intentions for bringing freshness. I want to say a bit more about Aquarian energy. I do, but I think I want to let my colleagues speak as well. Otherwise, it will be just a Monica podcast and an Aquarius podcast for today's episode. So, Kimberly, would you like to join?
Yeah, I would be totally up for an Aquarian talking about Aquarius energy podcast episode. Just saying, okay? And I love what you said about, I believe that a lot of times Aquarius can get a bad rap in astrology circles as being, the rebel and the rebel rouser and wanting to break all the rules. I love what you said about it's not just breaking rules for the sake of breaking them. It's about realizing where things have become rules that are in existence no longer serve ourselves or the higher good, and how we can then realize we need to break past them. And I think that's some of the bravery and the strength within Aquarius and its determination, as a fixed sign to keep pushing against. Sometimes Aquarius can be, that drip that keeps making a hole in the stone. Like it doesn't matter how much the establishment says this is the way it needs to be. It's that Aquarius mindset that's like, no, there's another way it can be. There's an out of the box other way of thinking. And I feel like when we apply that to ourselves rather than out into the world, this is part of the reason that for me, Aquarius energy is so much about being authentic, really figuring out where I am me. I am not necessarily just the parts of me that society accepts or my family accepts or that work out there. It's what is the uniqueness, the mindset that I have, that I bring forward, where I see the world in my own unique way, and how am I going to live? How am I going to strive? How do I bring that forward? And so everything that you said, ditto and more. And the only thing I would add is that, for me, Aquarius is very much about becoming comfortable with those parts that feel or have been labeled or we've been told don't fit the mold, and realizing that I'm going to make my own mold. As Daenerys Targaryen said in Game of Thrones, I don't want to improve or fix the wheel. I want to break the wheel. That to me is like Aquarian. I'm going to break the mold and create my own unique being. What about you, Anne? How do you resonate with Aquarius?
I resonate quite well, or how should I say it? I have Uranus very prominent in my chart, so I think it's an energy that I'm used to somehow, or I have to live with, or how you want to put it. This new moon, when I work sometimes with the Sabian symbols, so I like to check them for certain important date. So for this new moon, 12 degrees, it's interesting because it tells about people standing on a staircase in different phases, in different structures. And I think that this new moon is also symbolizing that we are coming out of this phase that we have been in for a few years, that has changed a lot also in our own lives, in our status, in our structures. It's like, who are we now, and what has changed in our life? And now this is a very nice way of redoing that and rebuilding that, and making it like we want it to be, because there are so many possibilities to change things right now after this pandemic. So that's also something special about this new moon. Also, its connection with this aspect with Saturn and Uranus. That's going to be, this is the last year they're going to be this close to each other and making a square. So I mean, that's also a beginning of an end of an era that we've been in for some time. So I think it's like really a lot more excitement into this in this Aquarius phase than maybe before, and also possibilities to see with the Aquarian vision what we can do and what we can change.
I have to say, I love that you brought up that freshness that we can change in our lives, because like you pointed out, Saturn, which is the ruler of Aquarius, the traditional ruler of Aquarius, is actually squaring Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius, and Saturn also is conjunct new moon. So Saturn is at 15 degrees and the new moon is at 12 degrees, so very close conjunction. And I think you're right. I think there is something about how do we deal with that tension with old versus new? Because it's not one or the other. There is a square, there is a signature of tension there. But I don't think it's like we have to move from the old to the new. What is old and what is new? So what I love that what started emerging over the last few months that I've been noticing is that some of the stuff that were considered, so to speak, old or old-fashioned, they're coming back. They're rejiggled, refreshed, renewed. So I don't know, handmade pottery became very popular recently, and handmade jewelry much more popular than the one that you can buy, in stores. And just the kind of hands crafts and new things that actually are handmade became much more popular. Baking at home, I mean, again, that's probably also the Uranian energy in Taurus. But I think there's a lot in us that kind of rethink what is the old stuff that we want to refresh, repaint, repurpose, whatever other words are there. But what can we bring into the future and will actually serve us? Because it's not about throwing everything away. It's not about throwing the baby with the bathwater, getting rid of everything old, but seeing what can serve us in the future, but also what doesn't serve us. What I love about corporate world, how it's changing, is all those huge buildings that would have 2,000-3,000 people, those offices, in the middle of New York or London, or, they're rethinking what they need. A lot of corporate world rethinks how they can deal with each other without office space. They were forced to do that over the last 2 years, and suddenly that works. And I've spoken to quite a few, friends or clients who said, well, actually the companies decided that they're going to downsize and they're going to have new rules and, again, new structures for the teams where you can go into the office for 2-3 days a week, or what you need to have that job done, but the rest of the time you can do it from home. So again, the kind of rethinking of the new rules and reevaluating them, that is super prominent on like a global scale, but also in our lives. I am going to interject here as well that I think that Saturn-Uranus energy that will be kind of prominent over the whole year, which we will, I'm sure, touch in the next few episodes as well, that will be the background, that will be the foundation of this year. And I don't know about you guys, I know we didn't plan to talk about it, but because we the kind of mood's taking us there, I kind of feel like the 2020 shut us down. The 2020 broke things, because I think the 2020 was very much a freeze moment. We froze because we didn't know how long the pandemic will last, what are the rules. So everyone kind of froze, waiting to be defrosted and go back to normal. And then 2021, I think it sinked in, no, the system is broken, the things is broken, we need to find new ways. And I think 2021 was very much a repercussion of like what is broken and what needs to be fixed. And I actually have hope, that's my personal hope, that 2020 will help us find those new solutions, find new ways. And that Saturn Uranus square that was so prominent last year, that broke those things that weren't working, now as it kind of moves away, will actually show us what we can take away with us and what new things we can build. So I wanted to throw it out there as well. I know we didn't plan on talking about it, but I think with that Saturn that I'm brought up, I think it's something that came to my mind.
How can we talk about this and not look at some of the bigger, larger cycles? So I'm glad you brought that up. And you know, just to echo for people who maybe weren't following astrology back then, you know, we going back to that Aquarius theme, right? About what needs to change, what needs to break, what rules do we need to stop? So it was the end of 2020. It was December 2020 when we had the Great Conjunction that happens every so many hundreds of years about you know, Jupiter and Saturn together in Aquarius, which we don't see very often. And I felt like that really meant the year before and the year after were carrying that energy. So it was sort of 2 years of stop and assess what is working, what is serving, you know, our true authentic self, and where in society, thank you, Saturn, where in society are we not living that ideal? And then, you know, on the heels of that, we have Saturn and the modern ruler of Uranus squaring. So, okay, what now? Before we go forward, what do we need to change? You know, I think the saying's been used a lot over here about we're not going to come out of this pandemics type world until we create our new normals. We can't go back to the way things were. We have to figure out if we're going to go forward, how do we go forward in a way that's different? Whether that's working from home or, you know, changing life systems. So I think you're spot on with everything that you said, Monica.
Have you ladies heard this expression of the Great Resignation? Have you heard that? So obviously it's kind of like, you know, the 30s were described as that kind of Great Depression. I've read somewhere, and again, I can't remember where I read it, when someone actually said that the 2020, 2021, especially 2021, was the year of the Great Resignation. And what the person meant by that is that it was the year where people broke. People realized that, you know what, I don't want to do the same job, or, you know, or I want to follow my passion, or I don't want to be an accountant anymore. I want to bake cookies and open a bakery, or I don't want to be a baker. I want to go into teaching, or anything else. That suddenly people had time to stop and reevaluate their lives. And that freshness of Aquarian energy, that freshness of that air, Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, I think is sipping in when we are reevaluating and like, what is the freshness that we can bring? So that new moon, I would really encourage everyone to do some journaling and just think about, like Kimberly said, what is the true you? What is that kind of eccentric, quirky, weird you that you love and you want to show to the world, but you're afraid because some old structures or some old rules will hold you back? I mean, for me, 2021 was that breakthrough as well, because coming from a financial corporate world, I was always keeping a lid on astrology because, again, I didn't want to be seen as that weird person, you know, that does astrology in my corporate world, in my corporate job. And again, 2020 was like, no, there is no hiding anymore. There is no hiding the crazy and the weird anymore. So here I am, take me or leave me. But but I think that this is the moment when we can reevaluate that. And I'm so excited. I mean, I think you guys can hear how hopeful and excited we are, not only for this new moon in Aquarius, but I think for this year as well.
Yeah, definitely. So let's dive into some of the aspects that are happening with all this Aquarian energy of Moon, Sun, and Saturn.
So we already mentioned that it's obviously conjunct Saturn, and it's square Uranus. It also has that sextile to Chiron, and that's the only planet in Aries in a fire sign that my colleague Anne picked on just before we were going to record this session, which I think is incredible. I kind of feel like when I look at the chart of the new moon energy, that there are pockets of like those little bubbles of energy, and it feels a little bit disjointed because we have the new moon with Saturn and making that aspect to Uranus, but everything else is in the pockets, in like little pairs of two. So I do think that there is the energy of breakthrough with this new moon, with that Saturn square Uranus. There is energy of healing with Chiron sextiling the wounded healer, brings that kind of soft, gentle aspect to that Aquarian and say, okay, it's okay to be weird. It's okay to be eccentric. It's okay to be your authentic self. It's okay to be you and take action. Chiron is in Aries, so it's a fire sign. It's okay to take action and be weird and just celebrate that. And this is what energy I can see in that little new moon. And there are other aspects that going on, but I think we'll touch them on them a bit later.
Yeah.
Do you guys see anything else?
I think that Saturn is so important. Just gonna say one more time that having this powerful new moon, that's new year, new moon energy on Saturn, says to me that it's up to me to take responsibility, to find my true authentic self. It's up to me to take responsibility to bring my true authentic self forward into this world. It's up to me to identify and to take action about what needs to change. And if we're not doing that, then I feel like that square with Uranus can really bring the change to us in less than pleasant ways from the world around us. Like either I'm stepping forward and changing things, or chaos and pressure and other things are happening to kind of force me to change the way I'm dealing with things. And personally, I have felt that a lot. Yeah. Anne, what about you? We're doing all the yakking. Let me stop and hear what you have to say about some of these exciting aspects.
It's okay. I just like to listen to you. I think it's nice also that, or I noticed what has happened with the energy when Uranus is changing direction over these past years in Taurus, that it's starting to go direct. Something changed and things start to move forward, sometimes at a very fast speed. And this somehow also I connect Uranus to Aquarius, and I think that this is a really good time for people to search for new kind of cooperative work together, or new kind of ways of working. And I've seen this already, that people are kind of searching for new ways, new structures of making a living, or for like having maybe also a bit more unusual joint work with somebody else, or somebody you would believe would work together with someone else. So you're searching for something, and Uranus is helping out to get this energy going forward, because even if we set a lot of intentions last new moon, I think that these retrogrades has made it a bit problematic to go forward, that we have maybe had to wait for some things that we wanted to do, or we noticed that this is going to take longer time than I thought, or so now is maybe the time when we can start to see a result of something.
I like that.
Yeah, you're right. And people are looking for, new and out of the box ways to cooperate, like 3 women deciding to do a AstroChat podcast.
It only took us 2 or 3 years chatting about it.
Took
So
the
I guess that's a
tension.
fixed.
Took the tension of that Aquarius squaring Taurus to move us forward, I guess.
Something broke 2021. Yeah, something broke. Some of the structures and like you said, and the labels that we kind of put on ourselves or society put on us, we shook them off. Kind of all those boundaries or bondages, that we had. We actually broke through them. So yeah, I love what you said, Anne. You always kind of look at the chart and you see really cool things. And I love that, like you say, that Uranus is moving forward, and it brings that kind of energy of, okay, we can actually move with it.
Starting again. So just to be transparent, we're filming this during a Mercury retrograde. So if it seems like everyone's changing order, yeah, we are. But go ahead, Monica. You were on a great roll. Do you remember what you were saying?
Kind of. I was saying that I love that Anne pointed out that Uranus is actually changing direction, and quite a lot of planet is changing direction, which Anne will be talking about in a minute. And it brings that energy of, okay, we can go into forward movement. And I was saying that, boy, I need that, because as much as I've done all my planning and I was really diligent this year for 2022, I kind of planned my year to the point when I broke down all my goals into quarters, into like monthly goals. And it's, late January when we're recording that, I'm already 2 months behind some of those goals, because life happened, because other things happened. So I need to readjust and reevaluate. But again, I do have that scheduled every month to reevaluate my goals and set new. And that's something I do on the new moon, reevaluating the previous month and actually how am I going and what am I setting and what intention and affirmation I'm doing for the new month. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that forward movement. I really am. Would you like to talk more about those planets moving into different directions?
Yeah, because now we are at the end station with that, and that's a bit, every time when a planet is seen, it's an optical illusion. Of course, planet seems like it's standing still or it's slowing down in the sky. We get different, more intense kind of energy with it. But when I think that the end stationing phase is less intense than the beginning phase when it's stationing. So I think that this is more like a time when we go through, so what happened during retrograde Venus? What did I see during retrograde Mercury? And prepare to go back to the normal life again after these retrogrades. But still that we feel that I think that it might feel also like a kind of relief somehow. Then now I worked through these karmic issues. Now maybe I met some people I didn't meet in a long time. I went through things with myself, and now I'm like, I'm done with that now, or I have a solution that is still maybe going to be felt during the Venus shadow phase, but it's still some kind of closure on it, I think, when they station. So I think that this also with the node stationing. So I feel that this also together with the node stationing at the same time, when the nodes are stationing, it's even more highlighting that this is a release of some old karmic issues on a global scale. So I think that this is like, it might feel like a relief after a very intense month that we had in January.
I'm looking forward to that relief.
Yeah, I have to say, I am really intrigued about the North Node in Taurus and in the same sign as Uranus. So obviously Uranus has been in Taurus for a few years now, and North Node changed sign recently. I am really intrigued by them meeting in that sign. I'm not gonna lie. That is one thing that I'm kind of looking forward to with anticipation.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have the asteroids on our chart, but isn't Ceres also in Taurus and conjunct that North Node point right now.
Yes.
So I feel like there's something here with the nodes having changed signs last month, but we're still new into this energy. Ceres is right there, and they make a trine sextile to Pluto. Wide orb, obviously, you know, we're not quite, it hasn't exact perfected yet, but it just feels like there's something about what has my body been carrying as well. Mm-hmm. There's this something here about what you were saying, Anne, about this sense of relief, this sense of release, this idea of, you know, we're coming to an end. And I feel like so many people I know are doing intense, intentional body work right now, somatic release, or getting sick and just having to purge and release and let go of the tension, the stress, the what I've been carrying as we've been making the changes perhaps in our mind, in our awareness about the shift we wanted. Making that shift can also mean I have to let go of either the physical, where I'm holding the fear in my body, or I'm letting go of the what I've been carrying. It just feels so huge, but so good to finally stop carrying that load, that weight on the shoulders, as it were.
I agree.
And Chiron is also stationing, so this is a good time to do the healing work, to start the healing and use the Chiron energy. Also the Scorpio South Node energy that we are coming from right now, with that intense emotional energy going towards the healing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to even see in the world, isn't it? It's like sometimes you don't need an astrology to show you the energies or the archetypes present. Because if you're good at observing and reflecting, you can see that we've been for 2 years locked in our houses. In some of the countries, that lockdown has been more strict. In some of them has not been. Some people have not seen their families if they were in a different country for months at the time. And you feel that constriction, and we carry that. And what I'm getting and hearing from a lot of sources now, it's like, oh, now it's the time when I'm emerging and looking after my body, and I'm trying to, you know, start different diet or different health regime, and not just because I want to lose the kind of, you know, pandemic weight, which I hate that term, absolutely hate that term, but the idea of we froze in that kind of anticipation because we didn't know what to do, and this kind of freeze, flight, fight mode type thing, that we've been through that as a society, as a culture, as a you know, on a global scale. We've been through that, where people were either fighting, you know, for the mask, against the mask. People were, you know, frozen in not knowing what to do because they were in UK put on furlough. They didn't actually know if they have job to go back to, or they were, you know, running away from something and just going into something else. But it was more of a reaction than actually response coming from the place of knowing. And I feel like those nodes shifting now into Taurus and Scorpio for the next 18 months, this is very much like responding, like, what is my body going through? Like, how did I take care of my body? Have I been really mean to my body in terms of what did I nurture myself with? And what I mean by that is not just food, you know, but it's also like, what information did I absorb? Conversation that I absorbed, what was nurturing my body, and was it good or was it bad? What was feeding, maybe I should say, what was feeding my body, and was it a nutritious to me on all those levels, mental, emotional, and physical, or was it not? And I think now we're coming back to that awareness that, do you know what, I carry a lot of tension in my shoulders because I've been hunched over my laptop on a kitchen table because I wasn't working in the office, or I carry a lot of you know, sluggishness in my body because I was eating nothing but baked bread that I was doing every day, you know, in my kitchen. Like, what is it that we've been doing as a reaction to the stress and the trauma that we've been going through? And now we can actually respond to that. Now we can begin to notice how our body responds, where our body carries that emotional stress as well of the last couple years. So thanks for bringing that up as well.
If we were together in person, I'd be giving you the big fist bump right now. Yes, to that. Before we move into talking about Mercury, Anne, do you have any other thoughts? And I don't mean to put you on the hot seat. And if you're like, no, that's fine. But before we started recording, you were mentioning some of this energy of things changing direction, how it's really going to give us that sense of we're finally able to move forward. And I know Monica touched on that earlier, and you also alluded to that, but do you have any more? That really fascinated me, and maybe because I so desperately want to feel that sense of moving forward, because the month of January really felt like a time period of just being stuck and just so much work, but like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And so I'm just wondering if you have any other thoughts about this, how we're going to start to feel like we're moving forward as all these planets are coming out of their station periods.
Well, I think that we already have a sense of that something new is going to happen now, and we kind of, like Monica said, we have been very tense, and now it starts to be the time when we can relax like this. We can take a breath, like the world is changing, and we're already talking about opening up the world more. And this with this new energy. This chart don't have a lot of fire, as we talked about earlier. So maybe this will not be the moment when we will take action, but this will be the moment when we are visioning, when we are seeing and realizing that something is going to happen soon. It's going to be different than before. And it takes time to see it also for us, because it's so new in this situation. So I think I also looked at Neptune being conjunct Pallas Athena in fishes. That's also about, is bringing us a vision of what's going to come. And this vision is also something that might not in the moment be very clear. We don't know, but we still sense that we have something very beautiful that we can do with this energy. And Pallas Athena is a lot about structures also, and in fishes it's about finding a new way of spiritual being in this world that we are creating right now. So I mean, this is a very interesting energy to add to this new moon chart.
I have to jump in because I love what you were just saying, and what was coming up for me as well is, you're absolutely right. This is not an energy that feels like we can move forward because the lack of fire that you mentioned, but this is absolutely the energy when you feel fresh and we can strategize. I always have problem in pronouncing that word, but for me, the Pallas Athena, it's very much about strategy. What do I have? And being in Pisces and being in Neptune, like you say, is like, I have a vision, but it's not just me laying there on the grass, looking at the sky and having a vision. This is a vision that has a strategy behind it. This is a vision that have that kind of thinking behind it. And I know when to act on that, when I will be able to act. And I also think, I was looking, we haven't mentioned before, we do still have a stellium in Capricorn. We have Mars conjunct Venus in Capricorn, early degrees of Capricorn, and we have Mercury conjunct Pluto in the late degrees of Capricorn. So we have a personal planet plus Pluto in that Capricorn sign, ruled by that Saturn, that again is the king of this new moon. So for me, there is a lot of that energy of, I think, Anne, you mentioned that earlier, of taking responsibility for our action, taking accountability. You know, if you want to take accountability for your health, you can't just blame on pandemic and on all those pizzas. To a certain degree as well, that was your choice. And again, I know I'm kind of making a bold statements here. This is not aimed at individuals, because we know that there are various circumstances, but very often we try to push the blame somewhere else. And Neptune in Pisces is really good at that. Like, I can be the victim and everything else is the problem with me. I think this energy really says to us, you can do something and create something fresh, and plan for when the energy will be right to act on it. But that planning has to come from you. We have those nodes in the Taurus, we have Uranus in Taurus. So again, it's that kind of breaking through the body embodiment, the foundations that you have. And we have that energy in Capricorn as well. What is that you love? How can you act? How can you communicate the structures that you want and that you want to transform? That Pluto in Capricorn is all about transforming structures. How can you do that for yourself? It might be small steps, and it might be that Pallas Athena in Pisces with the Neptune, like Anne said, giving you a vision of, this is where I want to go, and this is the structure, the strategy that I can put to achieve that, and that energy can support you. And when the energy will be right, you will know how to act because you have that map, you have that plan. So I am loving what you're bringing on. Sorry, I can just go. You can tell that it's an Aquarian new moon, and I'm just going, ooh, it's amazing.
I'm right there with you. I'm just like gushing. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, I can feel that visioning happening. And as you said, it's not about taking action. It's about envisioning the action and the strategies, and everything we've said thus far feels like it's echoing to me to this statement, because the visioning that I'm hearing people do, that I am doing, are huge. I'm re-envisioning the structures in my life. I'm re-envisioning how I want to move forward. Maybe, as Monica said, last year was the great resignation of, I want to be in the kitchen and baking, but how am I going to make that a reality? I think was where many of us were. Now it's the, let's envision how I will make it a reality. And I'm just going to put a little plug in there that we talked about this last month, that since Jupiter's now in Pisces, a lot of things that perhaps felt unrealistic, felt too big, didn't seem too much like a dream or a fantasy, might be things we can really latch onto now. We can live the dream. We can believe in our ability to make the dream real. And so if you kind of put all this together, it does feel like such a perfect time to really open up and dig deep to what is it we want to be creating in this coming year for ourselves and our world. Gorgeous.
I just want to point out as well that it's Mercury retrograde when we're recording that. We already had quite a few snafus with the recording, which hopefully will be edited. So hopefully there will be not too many of those awkward moments on camera where I'm in one place and 2 seconds later in another. But also what I love is, before every episode, we kind of have a little strategy of what we want to do, and we have a little plan of what we're going to share with you. And this episode, it just feels so Aquarian. We went completely off the script, maybe not completely, but we went off the script. We brought stuff we weren't even thinking of bringing before the session. They just came up as we were talking. And I think this is a perfect energy as well of Aquarius, of what Anne was talking about, working differently with different communities. I mean, we're recording that over internet, over waves, so to speak, Aquarian waves. We're sharing the data to record that in 3 different countries. And we're creating a little community. And this is actually what we were doing over the last few years, that we wanted to bring this podcast to light, because this is the energy that we always had, vibing of each other, where one person seeing something and then brings up that kind of spark of intuition in you. And it's like, oh my God, yes, now I see that. And then it's like, yes, now I see this as well. And this is, I think, what I wanted, and the hope was for this podcast, if I can just plug that in, to share with you, with the audience, the idea that we are coming from 2 or 3 different backgrounds in astrology, not just the countries, but actually 3 different astrological schools or traditions. And yet we come together and we feed off one another, and that is enriching. And I think for me, this new moon in Aquarius is very much like that. How can I strategize to create that community? And you mentioned that about new ways of working with people with that Uranus. How can I do that? And it actually can be fun if you find weird and quirky and crazy people, as crazy as you are, to have that little community. So yeah, sorry, I needed to do that plug because it's just such a Mercury retrograde energy and Aquarian energy in this episode that I really wanted to point it out.
That's so true. And speaking of that, let's talk about the Mercury retrograde that is coming to a close. At least the first one of this year is coming to a close. The review of some dates. Our pre-shadow started back in December 29th in Capricorn. By January, it had retrograded back into Aquarius, went retrograde on January 14th in Aquarius. Stations direct, depending on where you live, you're going to get it either the 3rd or the 4th of February at 24 degrees of Capricorn. And we're going to see right after that, by the 14th of February, Mercury's moving direct back into Aquarius. So our Aquarian, Monica, take it away. Tell us your thoughts on that.
I mean, I'm coming from that evolutionary psychological background. So I always try to look at the transits, at what they mean to you personally, and how can you understand your emotions, the tension within you through those archetypes. But I have to say, this Mercury retrograde was as literal as it gets. So when we talk about Mercury, we always talk about rethinking and revisioning and, looking back at communication, maybe re-editing a piece of work that you were doing, because it's this moment when the archetype of communication is kind of going backwards. It's kind of going over the job or over the land or over the part of life that's already been through, to kind of double check and triple check. So that's the energy. But this Mercury retrograde, I mean, I would love if you can leave a comment to share with us the stories. Our stories were hilarious. They were so literal, from breaking down laptops to snafus in communication. I mean, I'm recording this on my old laptop because since the beginning of January, my new laptop's been God knows where. I had to return it to be fixed. Then it wasn't fixed, it got replaced, but it got replaced by a wrong laptop. So today I got told that my wrong laptop is going to be picked up for the new one. So it was super, super literal. And I don't know if that's actually because of the Capricornian energy made it real. And I don't know what about your stories, but we shared some few funny ones.
Yeah, we launched our podcast 4 days after Mercury went.
Yes.
Or I'm sorry, 4 days after the pre-shadow began. So like we were thick in the pre-shadow of Mercury about to go retrograde. And I know our editor Anne can share many stories about what we went through. But I'm with Monica. I would love to hear what people have experienced during this retrograde.
Yeah. It just takes 3 astrologists to launch a new podcast during Mercury retrograde. I just want to say that too. Although I have to say, for us, that's been in the making for the last 2-3 years, since we've actually started talking and doing this just for ourselves, and for the last few months talking and actually trying to plan that. And again, all the plans we had went out of the windows because life happened. And we had to readjust. So this is also, I think, the energy of the retrograde planet. They're teaching us about readjusting. They're teaching us about, if you had a plan, whether it's the retrograde Venus, you had a plan for love, or for the money, or whether it's a Mercury, you had a plan for your business or for the communication, you have to rethink that approach and maybe readjust. So maybe, that Tinder app and finding your Prince Charming was not quite the way to go. Maybe it was, but maybe if it wasn't, then maybe you have to readjust and go on a different app, or go to a, movie theater or a shopping center to find someone. You have to readjust and rethink your approach. So I think this is what any retrograde planet that we will be talking about in the future, the main thing for me is, how can I do it different? What have I done the first time around? Because let's remember, the planet will go over the same degrees 3 times. It will go forward, which is that pre-shadow phase. Then it will stop. It will retrograde over the same land, and then it will stop and go forward again, which means it covers the same ground 3 times. So this is very much, if I've done it once and it didn't work out, why would I do it again the same way, especially if the planet is in retrograde? Maybe the second time I can do it different, and maybe it will work differently or will bring different results. For me, the kind of retrograde feels a little bit like that quote that is assigned to Einstein, that doing the same thing over and over is definition of madness. That if you want to change, something has to change. So you can't expect change by doing the same thing, because obviously, you know, if you didn't get the results you expected the first time around, why would you expect that the second time? And this is the retrograde energy for me. So I am looking forward to Venus and Mercury going forward.
Ditto. And I feel like with Mercury's retrograde encompassing all this shift between the Capricorn and the Aquarian energy, you know, it starts in one sign, it retrograded back, it's going to go direct, and within a few days, ingress again. I feel like it's thinking about all we talked about with all that Capricorn stellium energy. It's almost as if, you know, January was the rough draft. It was the plan. It was the goals. It was the, this is what's going to happen, without making time or space to embrace that envisioning that Anne was mentioning. That's how I'm now kind of connecting the dots. And I feel like as we are about to station and come out, I can rethink, I can replan, I can redo the plan after I've made space to pull in some of that visioning and see how that's going to work in. You know, the plan needs to be something that's for my whole self, not just for this little part of me. So I actually love when Mercury's retrograde, despite the challenges with it. I think it's brings such strength. And so that's kind of how I'm sitting with this one, even though I'm really anxiously anticipating it going direct. I'm recognizing this is the gift.
Cool. Although I have to say, you didn't recognize it as a gift when your car battery went low.
Oh, or when I got sick for 6 days, or when the computer no, there's been lots of that pressure between Mercury and its higher vibration of Uranus. There's been a lot of external pressure making me realize you need to stop and re-envision and make space for that. So I needed the retrograde because I think I needed 3 rounds for it to sink in, but I'm there now, hopefully. Any burning thoughts before we go into practical tips? Anything we forgot? I mean, there's so much more. We could make this 3 hours easily. And when we're together alone, we have. But for the sake of time, either of you have any burning things to mention, or should we go into practical tips?
I think we can go to practical tips unless Anne has anything else to add.
All right.
I think so too. It's good with practice with those nodes.
Yeah. So for me, the thing that I am sitting with as this is approaching, and of course it's the beauty is we're recording this ahead of time, so I have time now to like actually think about what I want to do. What is the practical tip for myself as well as for y'all? And the thing that is really hitting me is the power of newness about this new moon. The idea that so often I notice a new moon, but I don't always embrace its energy fully. And since this is the season of Imbolc, the beginning of the pagan new year for some people, since this is the beginning of the Chinese New Year, since this is the beginning of many lunar calendar New Years, I really want to embrace this idea of going deep within myself, connecting with that seed that's planted deep in the dark and is doing a lot of movement to rise and to come forward and to come out, but I haven't seen it break the surface yet. So there's energy and action happening, but it's not out in the world, it's coming forward. And for me, this entails 2 things. One is sinking into my body, sinking into body wisdom. Often it's for me, it's about taking a bath or soaking my feet or doing something that feels very luxurious, lotion, milky. I recently read about using dehydrated milk and adding that with your Epsom salts as a very quick instant foot bath, but it also feels like pulling you down into your feet, getting getting that sense of not just grounded to the earth, but kind of, I think of Peter Pan, connecting to my own shadow, connecting to me. That's the first half. And then the other half is opening up to what my unconscious wants to say. I believe that from the new moon to the crescent moon is totally about connecting with the intention I didn't even know I had, connecting with my unconscious, my dream state, the things that are floating, the what do I need to know from the universe, from myself. So after doing this kind of opening up and sinking into my body phase, I'm going to be, and I really recommend other people try, finding a way of reflecting, of allowing your unconscious to giving it voice. For some people, that might be doing a divination with cards or runes or things. For other people, that might be journaling. For somebody else, that might be just listening to nature and seeing what meanings. I feel like there's something about symbolism. You know, this is the period of like being in our dream world when we're awake. So what is the symbolism of the messages coming forward? And as my teacher used to say, don't expect, just accept. Temporarily suspend expectation about what I should do or need to do, and just hear what is it you're being called to bring forward and to blend into that doing. So it's a period of not doing, maybe even undoing what I thought had to happen by connecting with my body and then opening up and allowing those messages to come forward with some kind of tool, technique that allows that communication to happen. That sounds very Mercury retrograde and tons of Aquarius, kind of, you know, loosey-goosey and doing it in a way that feels right for you. But that's sort of where my mind is sitting as I look at all this work. What about y'all?
And do you want to go first?
Well, okay, I can go first. I thought about the situation we have in this chart with not having a lot of fire. So I think that sometimes when you lack something in the chart, you start to search for that somewhere else. You want to have that to balance it up. So that's why I think that one good practical tip for this chart could be that you think about what brings the fire to you, what gives you the drive to do things, what makes you enthusiastic about things in life, what it is that you need to do to get started, to get going, and what's important for you with those things right now, and what do you think will be important for you to with this new phase that is coming. So these kind of things I would maybe make a small list of the things that inspire you and make you wanna get started with things.
I'll definitely be doing that. I need a little bit more fire. Well, for me, the new moon is in Aquarius, and I have mentioned a lot on this podcast about Aquarius. Happy birthday, all the Aquarius. The sun obviously is in the sign. But for me, the new moon in the sign, it's very much an opportunity to get to know to that sign, because you can sink in, like Kimberly said, you can sink in, you can retreat into that sacred space of yours. And whether you're journaling or doing a meditation or doing yoga, you can actually reflect on what that energy represents and where that energy manifests in our lives. So you might know that, or you might not know that Aquarius, obviously, when we look at the chart, we all have all 12 signs somewhere in our chart. We might have Sun in Libra and the moon in Taurus and all the other planets somewhere else, but the Aquarius will rule one part of our life. So where is that energy in your life? Where is that eccentric, rebellious energy? Is it in your home life? Is it with your friends? Is it in your relationship? Where is that quirkiness comes through in your life? If you know your chart, you'll be able to see that, because that will be Aquarius on the cusp of that house. If you don't know that, just observe your life. Where is that kind of quirky, weird type of energy coming out for you? And also just reflect on that energy. What is your vibe? What is your authenticity? what is the type of tribe that you want, or the type of community that you are drawn to, because you feel like they understand you. Aquarian energy, again, can bring that kind of sense of detachment, and with it, a sense of loneliness and actually feeling alone, like I am misunderstood because I am that different. So if you feel like that somewhere in your life, where is the tribe that you can look for? And how can you connect with them? Because I guarantee that there will be weird people doing weird things the same way as you do. I found those two ladies here on a podcast, and I found many more. But you do have that. So this is reaching out and seeing where you can do that. And if you don't think you have that energy in you, if you think like I am very pragmatic and I am very very grounded, and I don't have that eccentricity in me, why not challenge yourself? Where is your weird? Because we all have that little thing that 2-year-old or 3-year-old in us expressed, and then it got put together because it's not allowed, or because the structure doesn't allow us. So if you think of yourself, I'm not like that, I don't have that energy, it's like, why not? Where is that moment or place or people or places in your life that you feel pulled, but you feel constricted? That's very Saturn energy as well, that boundaries and constriction and bondage energy. So where do you feel that bondage, that you can't express yourself? Like I couldn't in my corporate career, I couldn't express that weird, quirky Aquarian astrology person type. So yeah, explore that. For those who know they have that side, explore your tribe, connect with your tribe, use the energy of the new moon to set intention to do that. And for people who don't think they do, I challenge you, have a look, where is your weird? How is your weird? And why is your weird?
Oh, I love it. I love it all. I so value both of your suggestions, and I love how we can look at something with such diversity and still have a common thread. As Monica said early, this is the tribe that gets my vibe, and I'm so happy to be here doing Aquarius conversations with you both. So on that note, I guess we'll call this a wrap, and I look forward to hearing comments from our viewers, whether it's on YouTube or on BuzzFeed, and we'll see you at the next full moon to talk about the 2 weeks after that.
I'm going to say, we're actually extending our tribe to you guys. So we're extending that Aquarian energy to you and trying to connect with you. So please do leave a comment, leave a message. Would be lovely to hear your feedback and your thoughts as well. Until next time.
Bye.
Until next time. Bye.
Thank you for joining us in this week's AstroChat. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion and would love to hear about anything that resonated with you. Keep the conversation going by posting shareable content on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube pages. You can also email us at astrochatpodcast@gmail.com. AstroChat is uploaded every 2 weeks on the Saturday before each new and full moon. Look for us on your favorite podcast platform as well as on YouTube. You can support AstroChat and receive exclusive content by donating on our Patreon page. We look forward to chatting with you all again at the next lunation of the moon.